إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, seek His aid and ask His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evils of ourselves and from the evils of our actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, none can misguide, and whomsoever Allah leads astray, none can guide. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except for Allah alone, have no part. And I bear witness that Muhammad is His slave and His messenger. أما بعد, to proceed, فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله. The best of talks, beyond any doubt, is the Quran, the Book of Allah. وأحسن الهدي هدي Muhammad, and the best of guidance is the guidance of His messenger Muhammad. May peace and blessings be upon him. وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها, and that is the most evil of all matters in Islam are the ones innovated. فإن كل محدثة بدعة, for every newly innovated matter in Islam is an innovation. كل بدعة ضلالة, and every innovation in Islam is a misguidance. كل ضلالة في النار, and every misguidance will lead to the hellfire. Before I start, for those who are following me in my lectures, and they know that the thing that I emphasize on something which I have learnt from the Shaykh rahimahullah, which he has taken it from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And remember, those scholars, they are signing on behalf of the Almighty Azza wa Jal. So when they pass a fatwa or they pass a rule, they pass again on behalf of Allah. So just like Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, when he made his book, Imaam al-Muwaqqi'een, that is an Rabbil Alameen, those are the ones who had been said as to be scholars signing on behalf of Allah Azza wa Jal. I have learned from him, the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayh, that the body's unity would affect the heart's unity. And that is taken from a number of hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One of them is the hadith of Tha'labat al-Khushani radiyallahu anhu. Abi Tha'lab al-Khushani is a companion who was with the Prophet of Allah, and the Messenger of Allah was on a journey. And the companions were separated with their bodies. And that's in the desert. So the Prophet of Allah said, Mali arakum izin. Why do I see you scattered? As soon as the Prophet of Allah said that, the companions got together. So the gaps, which is like this, has been filled. So let's see, inshallah, we apply the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and fill up the gaps as much as possible. It's like the companions, they would sit even on a piece of a carpet, and those companions are much, much more than us at the moment. So, and that is why the Prophet of Allah also, he said, Inna tafarruqakum hadha min ash-shaytan. Separating your bodies is from the act of the shaitan. That is why the Prophet of Allah would emphasize, as soon as he makes the prayer, that the feet with the feet shoulder to the shoulder. You've seen me going through the lines. And alhamdulillah, I have seen something which made me happy, that most of the people are adhering to the sunnah of the Prophet of Allah. That is due to the fact that Imaam Jazahullah khairan is applying the sunnah. Implementing the sunnah is not just in 1 day or 2 days, it takes time. Prophet of Allah used to line the companions even in the battle, because the outside, the outward of the person will affect the inward. So your unity outside will affect your unity in the inside as well. So alhamdulillah, this is a start. And when we talk about the scholars, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send upon us the mercy. Just like Sufyan ibn Uyayna, he said, عند ذكر الصالحين تنزل الرحمة. When we mention the righteous and the scholars of the time that had passed, that the mercy of Allah would descend upon us. And the scholars, sometimes they would mention the scholars before them, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive them because they are mentioning the virtues of those scholars. So when we mention the scholars, is from the verse of the Quran, فَقْصُصِ الْقَصَصِ. That is, say to them the stories of the prophets, the stories of the companions, the stories of the scholars, the stories of the righteous people. All of that will play a big role into our heart and will pump our iman. Especially when we talk about a person who's in this era. Not really a long time ago he died. We're talking about 17 years ago when he died. And I apologize from the Sheikh Al-Albani, because if he was here, he would do mind about two things. Number one, the camera. He would not allow it. Number two, using the Christian date. And if I use the Islamic date, you will not understand how long ago. So the Christian date, he died in 1999. And that is about 17 years ago. But the Shaykh, if his body died, still his remembrance in the hearts is alive. Al-Imam al-Bukhari, we don't have to give him tazkiyah. Allah gave him the tazkiyah. Imam al-Bukhari's name is mentioned from Imam al-Bukhari time until the day of resurrection. It will be Imam al-Bukhari. It's enough tazkiyah for him that his book is second after the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, those are the ones when we mention them, we want to take them as a role model, to motivate us, to make us learn from their life, especially from those ones who've been accompanying the Shaykh. Now, the brother, when he gave me an introduction that to be I'm a student of the Shaykh Al-Albani, maybe on the books, but to be student as an actual student that day and day I study with the Shaykh, that's not right. And it was the case that he had students that would day and day they come to the Shaykh, because the Shaykh, he did not have the facility where he was to give lectures except in the Medina. That's when he had you could say the official teaching. In 3 years he stayed in the Medina of the best of the times in the Shaykh Al-Albani's life. He calls it to be the best of the times. Now, I'm going to shed light upon something that you must have read in the books, you must have heard, but I want to give you something that you don't read in the books. You don't hear it in the YouTube. Something that I seen it myself with the Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayh. Something as well I've heard from a number of colleagues and also from my teachers and scholars who I'd met them. And they said to me something that myself I heard it, and I would like to share it with you as well, because we would like this to be passed upon to the next generation, and generation will take it as well to their own as well. We don't want this to be hidden or to be lost. The Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayh, from the name, is Muhaddith. Before I start about him, I need to understand, if you do understand the word Muhaddith. What is the word Muhaddith? Muhaddith is a terminology just like faqih. Muhaddith is a terminology, Islamic terminology, just like when you say faqih. So he's a person specialized in the hadith. He searches into the takhrij, extracting the hadith where it has come from. Like for example, we say, this hadith is being narrated by Bukhari, this hadith narrated by Muslim, so on and so forth. Right? So he is concerned about takhrij. Also, the tasheeh and the tad'if, to make the hadith to be authentic or to pass a verdict on the hadith to be unauthentic. And the hadith, tasheeh and tad'if, these are the two which are difficult. The students in the first stage of learning the hadith, they will be able to, with these tools as well these days, through the computer very fast, to tell you that this hadith belongs to such and such book, Tabarani, Al-Awsat, whatever. They will tell you straight away. But to judge upon the hadith, whether it's sahih or da'if, this is linked to a knowledge called Mustalah al-Hadith. Now, Mustalah al-Hadith is two types. One which is theoretical, and the other one which is the practical. Now, the theoretical is very easy, but the practical, it needs smartness, and it needs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given that to you, a dedication. Something that you can't earn it by just studying one book or two books. It has to be something like with experience. Like when somebody, cooks you food, and he's a master chef, you could take the recipe and do the same, but you're not going to get the same taste of the chef, isn't it? Because he's master. Same thing with this. Yeah, regardless how you studied, you have to spend some years in order to get that practical. And the practical, when we say, because the ilm al-hadith, you see the problem with it is that the muhaddith, his principle or his, I could call it what he's depending upon is the isnad and the chain. That is, haddathana so, from so to so. Now this isnad is not in one book, or two books, or three books, or 10 books. We're talking about, and I'm saying, hundreds of thousands of books. And not hundreds of books, hundreds of thousands of books. That is why the knowledge of ilm al-hadith, at the time of the Shaykh, nobody would approach it. It's a hadith, it's a subject, everybody's scared of it. To be a muhaddith You need to be a person who had read hundreds of thousands. You could be, I'm not now belittling the faqih, but the faqih, if you read 10 books of fiqh, mashallah, you could give fiqh. Usul, if you read 10 books of usul fiqh, you will become usuli. No problem. But muhaddith, no, not like that. Person, he has to deeply swim into the ocean of the books. And then, after reading all of these books, he has to have his own index, fahrasa, his own, where he could refer to it. And for those people who had worked in the hadith, and worked in how patience it means. Because it is not something that you enjoy like the fiqh. It's to do with actually knowing what is this person is all about, his biography. And you want to know what is his name, what his era comes to, who's the scholar said he's good or not good. So that is why, when we're going to talk about the father of the Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah, who was a Hanafi faqih, and when we say scholar, he was not a scholar, but he was a person with knowledge. Faqih, people return to him in Hanafi. He told his son, when he went to this study of hadith, he said, San'atul hadith, or ilmul hadith, San'atul mafalis. He says al-hadith because it's Shami accent. Al-hadith, like the Urdu, say hadith. Okay? They say hadith, not hadith, huh? They say, so he said, ilmul hadith, San'atul mafalis. That is, the knowledge of the hadith is the work of those people who are bankrupt. You want to be bankrupt? Learn that knowledge. Because it's going to give you money. Who's going to sit to you and you say to him, حدثنا أحمد بن علي عن سالم بن مروان? Who's going to listen to that to you? Boring. People want to do with fiqh, to learn this is haram, it's halal. They want to do about the tafsir of the Quran, not something حدثنا. This is too much. Needs patience. And that is why very few people would go to the such knowledge. But because of the Shaykh, and we are in debt to the Shaykh, since he had started, and all of this belongs to him, regardless the people who are enemy to him, or the people who are attributing the proper facts and to the Shaykh, they are still in debt to the Shaykh. They cannot have their library empty from as-silsila as-sahiha or as-silsila al-da'if, which we call him as-silsilatan al-dhahabiyatan, the golden silsila. No way that person will have. So if he says, for example, insult the Shaykh Al-Albani, just raid his house and see. You will see Shaykh Al-Albani's book in his library. You cannot go without the Shaykh Al-Albani's book. You cannot. Rahmatullahi ala Shaykh. So, without any further delay, I would like to share with you, was first of all, a biography, short biography, which you could see in the books and you must have heard as well, with the Shaykh, but the most important thing for me is to share with you something that was not in the books. The Shaykh is called Albani. But it's not the word Albani. Shaykh Albani never said Albani. He said Al-Bani. Because the ba in the Albani language is a ba. So Shaykh is Al-Albani. He doesn't say Albani. Albani, this is, our pronunciation is an Arab. Because of the ba is muraqqaqa, Albani. But in the Ajamiyya, in the Albani. And belongs to Albania. Now, the Shaykh used to be called Arnaut. Arnaut is just like equivalent like to Arabs. And Arabs belong to many countries, like Arabs from Syria, Arabs from Egypt, Arabs from Jordan, so on and so forth. Arnaut as well, Arnaut from Bosnia, Arnaut from Herzegovina, Arnaut from Albania. So they got Arnaut from different sects of countries. So he is from the Arnaut, but specifically from the country of what? Albania. And he was known to be the Albani, or Al-Albani, as the Shaykh he says himself, since he had made his first books, تحذير الساجد, اتخاذ القبور مساجد, to warn the person who is the prostrator, the one who is praying, to take the masajid, the graves as to be places of worship. In that book, which is the first book that he had made, the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi, he was known after that, Al-Albani. Everybody I'll call Al-Albani, Shaykh Al-Albani. So like the Shaykh Al-Bukhari. And the Shaykh Al-Albani, even he speaks the Arabic properly, but he's not an Arab. He's A'jami, and he's called Al-A'jami. Shaykh Al-Albani, Al-A'jami. He calls himself A'jami. A'jami means a non-Arab speaker. And I'll tell you what. Imam Bukhari, Imam Abu Dawood, Imam Al-Nasa'i, Imam Ibn Majah, all these Imams, Imam At-Tirmidhi, from Tirmidhi, all of them are non-Arab, except for Muslim. Muslim is the only Arab. And all the rest is what? Non-Arabs. They were non-Arabs, but yet they were the ones who had جزاهم الله خيرا وأحسن الله إليهم وكان في ذلك في ميزان أعمالهم. They have protected for us the Sunnah. Those are the ones who had come to us and told us that this hadith is from the Prophet of Allah. And this one is not from the Prophet of Allah. We call it a filterization, Arabic gharbala. So the faqih, in order to make his verdict, he has to come to the muhaddith. Can you tell me please, this hadith is sahih or not? He says sahih, then he come and gives his fiqh on it. But if it's not sahih, he could make a lot of explanation, and at the end of the day, they say to him, sorry, this hadith is unauthentic. All his fiqh, what happened to it? Collapses. All his fiqh collapses because his foundation is not sahih. So he has to go to the muhaddith. So we call the muhaddith as like, you know, the manufacturer of the cloth, and like the faqih and the usuli are the ones who are selling the cloth in the small shops. Okay? Something to make it closer to your mind. So the one who's manufacturer of the cloth is what? The muhaddith. And the one who sells them in different shops, usuli and faqih, mufassir, because even the tafsir, he has to depend upon the muhaddith, whether it's authentic or not. Because we could attribute something to the Prophet of Allah, and based upon it, we make fiqh, which is not authentic. I'll give you an example. Some of the people, when they go to the haram, they don't take sutra when they pray. Why? Based upon a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that there is no sutra in Mecca, and that hadith is unauthentic. So if you understood that that hadith is unauthentic, we are left with the hadith of the Prophet of Allah. إِذَا أَصَلَّ أَحَدُكُمْ فَلْيُصَلِّ إِلَى sutra. If one of you is to pray, then let him pray to sutra. And these ahadith, where they were triggered from? Were they triggered from Birmingham, Green Lane Masjid? They were triggered from where? From the Medina, the Prophet ﷺ, from the haram. So the haram, the Prophet of Allah, when he said these ahadith of taking the sutra in the haram. So that hadith, which some of the scholars or some of the people depended upon to say that this sutra is not to be necessary in the haram, that is not authentic. So without, as I said, any further delay, let's go to the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayh. First of all, his name is Muhammad, and that's the first name of his, and he's called Naasiruddeen. That's, he look like it's like a title or a nickname. Naasiruddeen is not his father. Muhammad Naasiruddeen. His father is called Nuh, the son of Nuh. Now, he is from the people who are considered to be the Mujaddideen, from the revivers of the religion in this era, and the one who had revived in the hadith and others as well. And he is hujjah in the mustalah, in the knowledge of hadith, like Imaam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and like others. And some of the scholars had said, we are looking at a person who belongs to the era of the Salaf, the first 3 generations, not the companions, but the ones after, but time had delayed him to come. So he is, if you look at him, he reminds you of what? Imams before. He reminds you of the ones like Sufyan al-Thawri, like Abdullah al-Mubarak. He reminds you of Imam al-Bukhari. Look at him. This Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayh, as we're going to talk, he has something to do with, we call it, Haybatul Ulama. Rahbatul Ulama. As soon as you sit with him, you don't know what you're going to do. How are you going to sit? Is the Shaykh satisfied with the way of sitting? Is he looking at me or not looking at me? And as soon as you try to make a question, you start shaking. And all the proofs that were in your mind will evaporate. And all that preparation that you want to say, it will gone. And you start doing like this. And if you are inside the Shaykhs, we call it kammasha, a pair of pliers. In the Shaykh pair of pliers, you are inside it, you can't go out. That's it, you're finished. You're being demolished. Rahmatullahi ala Shaykh. The Shaykh, in terms of his birth, he was born in a place called Ashqudra, which was the capital of Albania in the year 1333 Hijri, which you're not going to know that. So I'm going to tell you the Christian date, which is 1914. That's just before the First World War. 1914. And the person who was ruling that place was called Ahmad Zago. Ahmad Zago had ruled that country, and he ruled it in accordance with the way of Kemal Ataturk. So he had demolished all symbols that links to Islam. So all Muslims had to be under persecution. And that is why his father, being a scholar, I wouldn't say a scholar, very knowledgeable in the Hanafi. He was a reference to the people of that time in the Hanafi madhab. Because of that persecution, and because he had read in the ahadith regarding Bilad al-Sham, the land which Allah had put barakah. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawlah. Glorified to be Allah, the one who had made this possible journey, all the way from the Masjid al-Haram to the Masjid al-Aqsa, the one we have put blessings in the area around it. Masjid al-Aqsa and Bilad al-Sham. So because he had heard about Bilad al-Sham in the hadith of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had decided to migrate with his family, which they were poor. He had to sell his house, the father of his, and with that money, he has to go and to travel all the way to Bilad al-Sham. When he arrived there, he was financially skinned. Nothing. The Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayh, by his father's instructions, he had to put him in a school to study his preparatory, stage, which is the elementary classes. For example, 3 or 4 or 5 years. Because he arrived there about 8 years old when he was, the Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayh. So when he joined, he was the oldest in the class. He's about 2 years older than the one which is with him. But he did not have any Arabic whatsoever. But the Shaykh in no time, he mastered the Arabic, and he was better than even the Shami people. Even the teacher, when he puts a poetry line or a couplet on top of the bull, and he would ask the students, go and give me the grammatic or the grammar solution for that poetry, then all of them, they can't do it, and they will say, okay, Arnaut, which is the Shaykh, go and solve it. So when he solves it, he tells them, you Arabs, you can't solve it. Yet a person who's Ajami, non-Arabic, can solve it. So the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, he was the best in his class. His father, being a person who is a religious, he thought further studies in the professional academy or official academy is not good for the student, which is right. So he's taking him up from the elementary classes. He says, this is enough. And by the way, elementary classes at that time, if you pass 3-4 years, it's equivalent, I'm telling you, it's equivalent to a person now is doing GCSEs. I'm telling you. He studies so hard into math, so hard into Arabic, and I'm telling you that some people now, they graduate from universities, they can't even read poetry. Wallahi, they can't read. He's very good in maths and English, but he can't read even Arabic poetry. We have at the moment even Imams being graduated from the faculty of Sharia, yet they are not hafiz even for just Juz' Amma. And he's supposed to be an Imam. Now why? Because he doesn't need to have to be memorizing Quran. We have a technology these days. There's a monitor in front of him, and there's a watch in his hand. He could just flick the watch, and the monitor in front of him will put the page that he likes, and he would recite. But when the electricity is off, he's got a backup battery. If the backup battery is up and off, I've asked the Imam, so you are now reciting in, especially the Taraweeh, they do it, and you are now, and I've seen it. I was doing it myself. So I said, what about if the electricity gone off? He said, the backup battery. Well, the battery is not on. He said, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Khalas. That means I will refer back to what I know from the Quran. So these things made these imams, we call them ascetic, zahideen for Quran. They don't really study them. But they don't have to do it, because everything's been done for them is technology now. Right. Shaykh rahmatullahi alayh, he been taken up from the school, and then the Shaykh, he had studied on his father, first of all, fiqh al-Hanafi. And also there is a masjid called Masjid al-Tawbah, not far away from his house. And there's a person called Sa'id al-Burhani. Another Shaykh of Ahnaf, he had as well learned from a Shaykh Sa'id al-Burhani, Maraq al-Falah, one of the great books of the Hanafis. And also from the others, the books of Lugha, books of Balagha. Lots of books he learned from that Shaykh. But you see, there was something about the Shaykh. First of all, in terms of his life, how did he used to earn his living? Since he was a kid, teenager, he wanted to learn to be a carpenter. The reason behind this, that the teachers in the elementary school used to bully him sometimes and say, Arnaut, when you graduate from the school, what are you going to study? What are you going to study? Breaking woods? Why breaking woods? Because they are kassarin hatab. Because this is the only option for them, just to break woods. Go and break woods. He said, no, I want to learn to be what? A carpenter. He learned a carpenter from 2 teachers. One of them is his maternal uncle, and another person. But you see, this carpenting is to go to old houses because of the rain and the cold. They start, putting patches here and there to block the rain. But when it is really extremely cold, and it gets cold in Bilad al-Sham, there's no work. His father opened this little shop for manufacturing watches. So he saw his son coming back almost every day. 2 days of work, 5 days of rest. What is this? 2 days work, 5 days rest. There's no job. So he said to his son, what about if I teach you to learn how to fix watches? And the watches in those days, they were not digital. Those are the ones which have got the clogs, yes. And all of those, well, really tiny little things. And needs very wide eyes and precision plus patience. So the sheikh, he said, okay, whatever you like, my father. So he stayed with his father and he had learnt it. He had two brothers. They did not master what the sheikh had mastered. Even his father used to bully his two other brothers. He said, we can't do anything. Whereas his, mashallah, is the best. So he was very good. He could really fix watches so much. But when at that time, in the Bilad al-Sham, there was, the masajid had two madhabs. Madhab Shafi'i and Madhab Hanafi. The person who was being put to be the head of the municipality in Dimashq was a person who belonged to the Shafi'i madhab. So, he had imposed upon every masjid to make two jama'ah. Look at that. Look at this. Two jama'ah. One jama'ah for the Shafi'i followers and one jama'ah for the Hanafi followers. So, and he said, because it's Shafi'i, the Shafi'i starts first. After the Shafi'i makes the jama'ah, then the Hanafi will do the jama'ah. Now, the Shaykh already had learnt from some of his learning of what we're going to have actually advanced he had learned that there is no second jama'ah. It's only what? One jama'ah. And that's where the conflict took place, him and his father. Because the Shaykh started now to learn about the religion more what his father had given him. More than the Hanafi madhab that has been given to him. And I'll tell you how in a minute. So the Shaykh now is in a dilemma. When the Shaykh Sa'id al-Burhani was a Hanafi, he has to pray what? The second Jama'ah. The Shaykh does not believe in the second Jama'ah. So he prays behind the what? The Shafi'i, the first Jama'ah. Shaykh Sa'id was annoyed from him. His father was not really happy, but he hasn't confronted him yet. When the Shaykh Sa'id goes, sometimes he appoints his father to lead. Now, his father to lead. And yet, he prays with the Jama'ah, which is before his father. That's Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha and Fajr. Each prayer, each Salah, we got two prayers. A'udhu billah. Min al-ta'assub al-madhabi. This is what when the Madhab would do to the Muslims. We split them, subhanAllah. Two Jama'ah. Until one day the father of his, after being appointed by Sa'id al-Burhani, the Shaykh of the Imam, he appointed him. He himself, the father, felt ill. So he's asking his son to lead. So he said to his father, I cannot. I believe only in the first Jama'ah. That's the real confrontation between the Shaykh and his father. Now, it escalates later on. The Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that in the beginning of his life, as a person which had taken the first step into the deen, that he was a person who used to love to read. Even he used to read police stories. And that actually had advanced him in the Arabic language. He used to love to read anything. Then until one day, I was reading Majallat al-Manar, Muhammad Rashid Rida. This is a magazine which is being made from one person who could you say represent the Salafi madhab. Who should represent the Salafi madhab. He was reading, and in that, he was talking about a book, which is checking the ahadith of Ihya Ulumuddin. المغني عن حمل الأسفار في الأسفار في تخريج ما في الإحياء من الأخبار. This is the name of that book. So the Shaykh wanted to get that book, which is takhrij, that means the extraction of those ahadith in the al-ihya and where they belong, until he got it. But when he got it, it's too expensive for him to buy. And he was too poor. So what he did, he rented it from the owner or the shopkeeper. He rented it and he took it and then he bought Risha. Like the pencil these days, those days are not like our pencils, very easy and mashallah. No, the sharpener, like a sharpener like this, very hard. And he bought two to distinguish one which is really thick and one which is thin. That is the matan, which is the book, and then the hashiyah, the footnotes, little ones. And he had written the whole book, and the book is 4 volumes. And the Shaykh made elaborating upon it to make it even triple that volume. Triple. More than 8 volumes. The book hasn't been printed. That book, which is Al-Mughni an Hamd al-Asfari fil Asfar fi takhrij ma fi al-Ihya'i min al-Akhbar. Naasiruddeen Iraqi. This book hasn't been printed. Now this is the first thing that the Shaykh has done. Elaboration, taking the hadith and elaboration. That's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him on the footstep of hadith. That's when the real confrontation between his father and himself. After he has been spending some years with his father in the shop, which is to do with fixing the watches, then his father, he had said to him, either you stop what you're doing, which is the hadith, and you follow the Hanafi madhab, or you leave. You've got an option. So the Shaykh now, he said to him, give me 3 days, father, to think. The Shaykh has been given an option. So he's not being called undutiful to his father. His father's giving on. Either you follow me, or you leave. Now when you leave, he hasn't got anything. Nothing, no foundation to stand. He cannot put his feet on a firm ground. He's got money, nothing. He depends upon his father. He used to give him little salary. After 3 days, he said, Al-Mufaraqa. Separation, my father. So he took his stuff and he opened somehow a shop. And we say in Arabic, قال الكريم خذ. Allah said to him, take. Means money, mashallah. People used to come to him because his shop was lying on the path of those who are farmers, used to come to the town. So their watches sometimes they don't work. They give it to the Shaykh, and the Shaykh, because of his trustworthiness and because of his precision and because of his skill, he had gained his name. He gained his reputation. So he had this shop, and also that shop was turned into, at the same time, a little library. The Shaykh shop hasn't been seen. I tried to Google it out to see somebody had taken a photo for that shop. I couldn't find it myself. I asked even our Shaykhs regarding this. He said, but it must be a little one, because his Shaykh had little books in it where he used to use them whenever somebody comes and asks him a question to do with marriage or to do with divorce. Then the Shaykh will answer him for that. Now the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayh, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had prepared him for the second stage now, he started now going to, after he had learned from his father. By the way, the Shaykh had many teachers. Sa'id al-Burhani, we said, his father. And Al-Tabba', the great scholar, who had made a book regarding the history of Halam, a unique book in itself. And he was muhaddith himself. And he gave him a tazkiyah to the Shaykh Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayh. So the Shaykh, the scholars are tools. So if the person took his knowledge through other than the ways of the Shaykhs, alhamdulillah. But the Shaykhs is not really the target. The Shaykh is what? The means by which you could reach your goal. So it's not, I have to have a Shaykh. No. The Shaykh is the means. You have to arrive to the knowledge. You may travel from one place to another. You have to sit on your knees in front of the Shaykh and learn. So the Shaykh had read the whole of the Quran in front of his father, in front of Shaykh Sa'id al-Burhani. Also he had read the tafsir. He wrote as well the books of the Hanafis, and lots of as well books in Arabic and language. And the Shaykh rahmatullah, even one day when he was giving a talk in our country, one of the great scholars of knowledge of language, he was sitting around. The Shaykh Al-Halabi asked him afterwards, how do you see the Shaykh? He said, Wallahi ma lahana wa la kalima. He did not make one single mistake in the Arabic grammar. And that's a talk for a long time. And this is very rare, by the way. Very rare. When the brothers had asked our Shaykh Abdul Muhsin Abbad rahimahullah, hafidhahullah, to write, his interpretation and his explanation for the Sunan al-Tirmidhi, which he has explained, Sunan al-Nasai, which he has explained, Sunan ibn Majah, which he has explained. So he refused. He said, we are not like Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen when he says something. It's always like we could take it onto a piece of paper. The Shaykh is saying, I am admitting I'm not like him. So my language is not as good as him. And I'll tell you what, the Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, when he talks as well, is not as good as Shaykh Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayh. He used to talk, Shaykh Al-Albani, for half an hour. One of the scholars, he went to the table to see if there is a piece of paper that the Shaykh Al-Albani is reading from. That's how it was. That the Shaykh, when he talks, it's like he's reading from a book. Rahmatullahi alayh. And as I said, the Shaykh We're going to come to it, inshallah, when he taught in the University of Medina. So the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, coming back, he had now had which we call it the treasure, which is the treasure, Maktab al-Zahiriyya. And Maktab al-Zahiriyya is a maktaba, a public library. It's in Dimashq. It contains thousands of manuscripts belonging to the scholars even at the Imam Ahmad and even previous or older than Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi used to go and spend in his learning and in totality more than 18 hours reading. Read more than 18 hours, the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, that he used to learn and to study. He used to love studying. And in the Maktaba library, 8 hours. That's from the morning until it shuts. And because the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, he used to, make the workers, bring me this and bring me that. The workers, they said, I had enough now, we'll give him a room. So they gave him a room, and this is nobody else had given that room. Room for the Shaykh Al-Albani. And when he sits on the table in the public library, it's fit for, at that time, for 4 people. But because the Shaykh is doing the hadith, the whole table is for him. Because the books takes the whole space of the table. So nobody can sit with the Shaykh. So when the students, they come to the university, they can't sit next to the Shaykh. Rahmatullahi alayhi, the Shaykh, he spent reading in the library until the person who was in charge gave him the key. Somebody gives you the key for the public library. That's something amazing. They gave him the key because he opens before the person who opens the library, the public library. Because he comes after Fajr and he opens the public library. Rahmatullahi alayhi Shaykh. Now, the Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayhi, after reading and reading and reading, he had some sort of tiredness. Reading plus fixing the watches. Those little plugs, very tiny, they need, they didn't have that sort of like magnifiers these days. So it's very hard. So his eyes now becoming weaker. And some of the veins in his eyes had burst. Because of that, they bring clot of blood. So we call it in Arabic, marad al-dhubaba. Dhubaba means the fly disease. That means when you look at something, you find something like a fly. Because of too much reading and too much exhausting, the person would start saying a black spot, which we call it the fly. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor said to him that you need to rest for 6 months. 6 months is a lot for the Shaykh to stay without reading. That's impossible, because it's like you take in yourself from your wife, even more. The books for the Shaykh is more. He loves them so much. So how can he take himself for 6 months? But he said, okay, I have to adhere to the command of the doctor. So what he said, so the first week or 2 weeks, he said, okay, well, there is a book called Dhamm al-Malahi, Ibn Abi Dunya. Dhamm al-Malahi means to criticize the musical instruments. Let me just ask someone and pay him to write that down from the manuscript and give it to me. So he just said to himself, I'm not really doing anything against the doctor's instruction. I'm just giving somebody to go and look for me. So he paid him the money, and that guy started writing that book for him. And then when he reached to a particular page, he found that one page, which is equivalent to 4 pages. By the way, these pages at that time, little writing. So if you want to take them or empty them, it will become what? 4 pages. He said that page, he came to the Shaykh, and the Shaykh, he checked the original with the manuscript, and he was true. There is a page missing there. And the pages those days, they used to sew them. There's nothing like these days, mashallah, printers and all of that. There was nothing called photocopiers. Copies has to be with a hand. That's the photocopying. Okay? So, the Shaykh realized that there 4 pages, which 1 page is missing. So, the Shaykh now, he said, I'm not doing any research. Let me go and just search for that piece of paper. And he's telling himself, I'm not going against the doctor's instruction, which he is. So he's going now, and he said, I will look into the section where that little booklet came from. So he started looking into that section, and the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that I came to read more than 500 volumes, trying to find that pages. While I'm going through it, and I'm really finding things which I've never seen before. Something that opened my eyes about things which is a treasure I've never been able to know. Not 500, sorry, 152. To be precise, 152 volumes. So the Shaykh, he couldn't find the paper. He said, maybe it's been sewn by other sections. Not that section of that booklet, another section. So he went to go and read, and read. And every time he can't find, to go to another section. Till he passed on to all the Maktab al-Dhahiri. Maktab al-Dhahiri is about, I've seen it, 5 times this place. Now that's 10,000 volumes. It's wrong for me. 10,000 volumes of books. Volumes, they're not like the nice print you have like this, mashallah, black and white, you can see it. No. Hand scripts, writing, very hard to. Shaykh had read them. Just to find what? That one page, which is equivalent to 4 pages. The Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayhi, said, it's not there, he hasn't given up. He said, maybe there is something, we call it a dust. This is a big, massive volume where all pages which are missing from books, they can't return them back to their originals. They don't know where they belong to. So they put them in what? In one file. So they sewn it in one file. So he looked into that, and it's a lot of papers. Yet he couldn't find it. But as soon as he looked, what he has given him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had opened for him a great gate to this treasure, I could call it. The treasure of hadith. So now Allah has prepared him for the 3rd stage, which is the stage of being the scholar of the hadith. What he did, he went to all of these books, 10,000, studied them in detail for the 2nd time. In details. That's the 3rd stage. And the Shaykh rahmatullah, said, I have made out of them 40 volumes, containing each one 400 hadith. 40 volumes multiplied by 400, you get what? 16,000. Isn't it? Or 100, how much you get? 400. 400, 16,000, isn't it? Yes? 16,000. So, 40 volumes. Each book contains 400 hadiths. So, 40 volumes with 400 pages. Each one contains 1 hadith. And this is the foundation of the Shaykh Al-Albani's treasure, where he comes and takes from it, and he puts in its Silsila Sahiha, Silsila Da'ifa, Irwa al-Ghalil, Tahrir al-Sajid, and all other books. From that treasure that he's got, where no one, he had it. Because as I said, the Ilm al-Mustalah, its foundation is not in 1 book or 2 books, is hundreds of thousands of books. You have to look at all of these asanid and refer to them. That's why the Shaykh, as I said, Allah prepared him for the 3rd stage. Why? Because of 1 missing page from 1 booklet. Look what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had opened to him. Now, the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, after that, as in we're talking about his history, first, the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, he has been imprisoned twice. Imprisoned by the regime at that time, Al-Asad, first Asad, and there is a second Asad now. First Asad, the first Asad, there's a second Asad regime as well. First Asad, and they imprisoned him twice. Once, which is more than 3 months, and another one, which is, I can't remember the time, but one of them is in Sijn al-Qal'ah, which is the same prison of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. In one of the prisons, I don't think it's the Sijn al-Qal'ah, just about when he was transferred by the army and the police to the prison, he called upon his son to bring for him Sahih Muslim and a pencil. So he brought him Sahih Muslim. Just the last moment, he gave it to him with a pencil. He went into the prison, and his prison was, just like Imaam ibn Taymiyyah, he said, khalwa, on his own. So he's got more time. In that prison, he used to have as well some debates with those people. Some of them are tahriri, some of them are takfiri, some of them in the prison. One of the incidents I remember, the Sheikh talks about, that the light just like this, remind me of this light. You know, the light, when you have, imagine one light there in the middle. So the whole hole in the prison have one little light like that, and it's hanging really high. So the Shaykh now, he wants to, rewrite the whole of Sahih Muslim. Now, he can't write with that. There was a person inside the prison whom he was his student before, but he left the Salafi and he went Tahriri. But he still had some sort of respect to the Shaykh. So the Shaykh requested him, you've been here for 2 years, so you're more experienced than me. How can we bring that light down in order for me to read? So he said to him, don't worry, Shaykh. He's got the person who is the Sajjan, the one who's in charge of the prison. He had made a relationship with him. So he said to him, the Shaykh wants this down. He said, no problem. If he pays, I will do it. So the Shaykh said, I will pay. So the Shaykh paid, and they brought electrical wire, and they brought that light all the way from the top down, so the Sheikh now can write. And the Sheikh wrote in the prison the Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim, which we don't really have. He lost it, the Sheikh. He can't remember, he gave it to somebody had taken it from him. He can't remember. And that's in itself treasure that is being lost from the Sheikh Rahmatullah. He made it in the prison itself. It's different from Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim, which is the Ta'liq of al-Mundhiri. That's a different book for that. I'm talking about Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim for the Sheikh Al-Albani, because Sheikh Al-Albani made Mukhtasar Sahih Bukhari and Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim, both. Rahmatullah alayh. And the people of knowledge, they know how much effort the Sheikh had put into that Sahih Bukhari and that Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim. They think, oh, just only abbreviation. No. Sheikh Al-Albani is bringing those ahadith which has the same, similar, some sort of matan, bringing them from all over the Sahih al-Bukhari, which contains about 7,000, to put them and link them to one and make them like one makhraj. And he adds all this addition into brackets from other narrations. That's a big job. And he had made that Mukhtasar Sahih al-Bukhari and Mukhtasar Sahih Muslim with the Sheikh Al-Albani. Was all the time, he was happy with his Mukhtasar Sahih al-Bukhari. He loves it so much. Rahmatullahi alayh. Now, Al-Imam Al-Albani, Rahmatullahi alayh, in terms of now, after he had been in prison, the Sheikh traveled to many countries. He went, because of the regime, to Lebanon. And he went to Emirates. And then he went to Jordan. And also in the meanwhile, he went to Saudi Arabia. At the time, the Sheikh who was the Sheikh of Sheikh ibn Baz, Al-Mufti Al-Akbar, he wrote to the Sheikh Al-Albani to come and teach in the University of the Medina for the very first time, where the Medina at that time university just been established. The Sheikh straight away accepted, and he went to the Jami'ah, and in there he met Al-Imam Shanqiti rahmatullahi alayhi, Sahib Adwa al-Bayan, the author of the Adwa al-Bayan, the one whom the Sheikh Al-Albani used to say, كأن القرآن بين عينيه. The Quran is just like between his eyes. So the Quran is between his eyes, that means you could see everything in front of his eyes. But the Sheikh, he says, when it comes to the debate, he cannot present his proofs at the time that he needs. That's because debating is another skill. It's not to do with knowledge, it's another skill on top of the knowledge. He said, كأن القرآن بين عينيه. Quran is there, but he does not really manage to bring the proof when somebody argues with him. The Sheikh al-Shanqiti, when he saw the Sheikh Al-Albani rahmatullah alayhi, passes by his class, he stops the class until he says Salamu Alaikum to the Sheikh, as a respect to the Sheikh Al-Albani rahmatullah alayhi. And that's the Imam al-Shanqiti al-Hafiz rahmatullah alayhi. As for the scholars at that time, there was Sheikh Ibn Baz rahmatullah alayhi, who was the headmaster of that university. Some of those students who are scholars, they graduated on the hands of the Sheikh Al-Albani. One of them is Sheikh Falah Ibn Ismail, who came to you, Falah. And he's from the Sheikh Al-Albani. You knew Falah Ibn Ismail ibn Dakar. I think he came here. No, he hasn't come here to give a talk. No, he hasn't. Luton, he hasn't come here. No. Okay, Falah, Sheikh Falah. By the way, Sheikh Falah, the first thing he learned is to teach English, by the way. This is a secret I'm telling you. Okay? He had learned, but that's why he keeps, elaborating on the English of the brothers when they say something wrong, because he knows a bit of English. So that's his secret, by the way. Sheikh, he's one of the graduates on the hands of the Sheikh Al-Albani, and also Sheikh Muqbil rahmatullah alayhi. Now, we're going to talk about what the Shuyukh says about the Sheikh Al-Albani later on. The Sheikh had taught for 3 years there, until his contract hasn't been renewed. For a reason or another, but it's to do with, as well, there was the fitna of Juhayman at that time, the one who had occupied the Haram. And the Sheikh had went back. When he went back to Syria, Sheikh Ibn Baz wrote to him. He said that your contract hasn't been accepted to be renewed. And I believe that wherever you are, the Sheikh, you could really plant. Because you are like a cloud passing over the land. Wherever you are, you're going to give rain. So he said to him, I don't advise you to come. Because he asked him for the advice to come back. He said, I don't advise you to come back. And the Sheikh took the advice of the Sheikh Ibn Baz. And by the way, there was a very strong bond between the Sheikh Ibn Baz and Sheikh Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayhima. Now, coming after the university, the Sheikh in the university, he made something called Al-Zahira Al-Albaniya. What is the Zahira Al-Albaniya? That every time, the teachers, when they finish their class, they go to their room and start chit-chatting with each other. But the Sheikh doesn't do that. Sheikh, he finishes his classes, he goes outside to the courtyard in the middle of university, and the students who were with him, and students from other classes, they come and join and become a bigger class in the courtyard, where every single student want to go there and ask the Shaykh rahmatullah. So he was, I would say, in a place that could be envied by some of the scholars, if you understand. Because other scholars, they could see that if he goes out of the class, nobody's following him. He just sit in the class because they have to sit in the class in order to graduate and get the university certificate. But if he's outside, he will not come to him. And the Shaykh rahmatullah was different. As soon as he comes out of the class, still the students sticking to him. The class hasn't finished for them yet. They want to learn more. They want to ask more. And that reminds me, wallahi, rahmatullah ala Shaykh, when we used to go to one of the masajid in Jordan. We used to go to this masjid in Jum'ah in order to see the Shaykh. Because he comes to that masjid. Masjid Shaykh Muhammad Shaqra, hafidhahullah. And this is the Masjid Salahuddin in the 4th circle in Amman. We used to travel from my place about 30 miles, I would say. And I didn't have any transport those days, just to come and see the Shaykh in that place, because we have the fatawa, asking the fatawa. And I remember one of those times when I went there, as soon as the khutbah is finished, the people are not coming for the khutbah at all. They're coming for the Shaykh. Because some of them, they say the khutbah is even boring. But for them, they want the Shaykh. As soon as the khutbah is finished, and the Shaykh leaves, bees, swarms with the Shaykh on him. Now, and they follow him onto the car. When he goes into the car, and the Shaykh is opening the car for everybody, people jump in the back, people jump in the front, and people on top of the bonnet, and on top of the boots, I've seen them, and on top of that roof of the car. Like this. They want to hear the Shaykh. One person I know him, he's Egyptian, he's called Sami, and he used to jump, because he used to work with the Shaykh in the side of the library, he helps him, and he used to jump in the back seat straight away, because he goes with the Shaykh home, because he works in the... So he has to have a little recorder, which is not with Abu Layla, the one who gives him the recording. It's different. So he used to record, and he called him Fatawa Sayyara, the Fatawa of the car. And he was really competing now with Abu Layla, Fatawa Sayyara, the Fatawa of the car. One day, I went there, and the Prime Minister, this is the second man after the king, he came to that place. It's a place where rich people do come as well. So the Prime Minister came to pray the Jumu'ah, and I remember his face. He's got this dasha, white dish dasha. He got no beard, of course, and everything. But he came, and he came with 4 guards with him. You know, when this person comes to any other masjid or any other place, people what? Surround him. He is a figure, he's a pop star, he's the Prime Minister. That moment I have seen the honor and the triumph. To who? Liman al-mulku al-yawm. Who is the triumph for? I have seen him, wallahi, so embarrassed. The Shaykh coming out of the masjid and all the people on top of him, and he comes out with his just only 4 guards. Wallah. And I had to even take some of the embarrassment to go to him. Your Highness, Assalamu alaikum. Myself, Assalamu alaikum. Just to take, because nobody had even bothered to look at him. Nothing for him. And he was so embarrassed. Man, he didn't dare to ask the question. Who's that person? The people are flying onto him. This is the honor. The king is the scholar. If that scholar goes, the people go with him. You remember Ba'i'u Salatin. Who's Ba'i'u Salatin? The scholar who had sold their kings. Who's that? Yalla, £5 for the person he knows. The ones who sold, he made a fatwa against the kings in the Egyptian scholar. And this person, he had left the country, and the people left with him, and the kings, they said, come on. We'll accept your fatwa because we can't have any people to rule. Subhanallah. This is the scholar. Shaykh Al-Albani, he went, everybody with him, and nobody's with that guy. Wallahi, I have seen him. Rahmatullahi ala Shaykh. Coming back. The Shaykh in the Medina, he made this dhahira, and not only that, he made something which had triggered some sort of I could say friction. I don't say hatred, but friction. Sheikh Atiyah Salim, he's the one who had taken an action against the Sheikh. He used to go on the Jumu'ah and in a trip with the students. And they used to make Jumu'ah where? In the picnic. And that is away from where? The Masjid of the what? The Haram, the Medina, the Prophet of Allah. The Masjid of the Prophet of Allah. The Sheikh, he goes to the picnic, and in that picnic, he makes Jumu'ah there. In that picnic, what is the area? In Ghaba, there's a place where there is, nice trees and nice as well, mountains to climb. I've seen to that place, I've been to it. And The Sheikh used to go there and make the Jumu'ah there. And he says, there's nothing wrong with it. You're getting the Jumu'ah. We're not hearing the adhan. It's too far from the Medina. And we're going to make, as long as we make Jumu'ah, it doesn't matter. But if we don't make Jumu'ah, that's what it matters. So the Shaykh would train even his students to make the Khutbah al-Jumu'ah. And that, as I said, triggered some friction that made it for him not to be continuing in the Medina as well. Rahmatullah ala Shaykh, then he traveled to Jordan. In Jordan, he stayed for 20 years. In that 20 years, you could say, most of his books being printed. Because in Bilad al-Sham, the printers were not really that sort of advanced. But in the time of Jordan, the printers in Lebanon and printers in Bilad al-Sham, they were more advanced. So some of his books coming now to the surface. So, Silsila al-Sahiha, Silsila al-Da'ifa, there are more than 200 titles. More than 200 titles for the Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi. One of these titles, as I said, Silsila al-Da'ifa or Silsila al-Sahiha. Silsila al-Sahiha reaching up to 7 volumes, and each volume contains 500 hadiths. And the Da'ifa reaching up to 13 volumes, each one contains 500 as well. So you could imagine how many hadiths that the Shaykh had checked, Rahmatullahi alayhi. The Shaykh, in terms of, because of his background as a carpenter, background as well a person who used to fix watches, that gave him as well something later on that he had used in his life. In the Shaykh in description of his eagerness regarding the time is very important for him. One of the doctors called Dr. Muhammad al-Sabbagh, he said that I have never seen a person who is keen about this time more than the Shaykh Al-Albani. We used to come to him in the library, which is Al-Zahiriyah, and ask him a question. He will answer us with one eye. One eye on us, and one eye still in the book. Like that. That's how I was eager not to leave his books. He will answer with one eye. One eye is on us, and one eye on the book. Subhanallah. The Shaykh does not want to leave the book. Verily, he used to climb on top of a ladder and stay on top of the ladder and forget about himself for 6 hours on top of the ladder, because some of the books have been shelved really high. Rahmatullahi ala Shaykh. No one, I could say, would have this jalad. He hasn't been patient. Because of that, as I said, his work, he was really patient. And as I said, this type of knowledge needs patience, needs al-hilm wal-ana, needs to be a person who is prudent and sedate, to be calm and forbearing and takes things easy, not to rush his decision and make a decision upon a hadith from the Prophet of Allah, whether it's to be authentic or unauthentic, and then later on he regrets. The Shaykh, he was so precise. And even when he used to take his books to be printed, before they go to the last stage of printing, he would ask for them after it's been checked by his students and being given the index. He himself, he has to check, which is very rarely been done by the scholars of these days. He himself had to check them, because it's to do with the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. Now, finally, we come to what the scholars had said, and then I come to what I have seen from the Shaykh myself. The scholars, in regard of attributing to the Shaykh Al-Albani rahmatullahi alayh, the Shaykh, by the way, he died on the Sabt, and that is after Asr, just before Maghrib, and he was buried the year 1999, as I said, and the Shaykh had put in his will to be buried as soon as possible. And I'll tell you something which you're not going to find in a book, which is that the Shaykh rahmatullahi alayh, when he was with his wife al-Fadl, and he's been married for 4 wives, by the way. al-Fadl is the last one, and she was barren. She didn't have any children. She and him used to pass by a graveyard. This is al-Fadl saying this. And she said it to one of the close students, a friend of mine. And this al-Fadl, she used to say that when I was with the Shaykh, more than 20 times, every time he passes by the graveyard, which is next to our house, a graveyard which is being deserted, a graveyard which almost the municipality of Amman, the capital of Jordan, were going to demolish. It's where sheep they come, dogs they come. It's not being protected. It's very old, and the new cemetery is outside the whole of capital. It's a long way. So the Shaykh wanted to be buried close for a number of reasons. That is, number one, not to be transferred into the vehicle, because he's against it, because it's a bid'ah. You have to be transferred onto the shoulder, not in a vehicle. So he was more than 21 times, according to his wife, he was pointing to a place. He said, I want to be buried there. And he was buried, she said, in the same spot he used to say. And that's from his wife. 20 times he's pointing I want to be buried there. I wish I'm going to be buried there. And he was buried there. And the head of the municipality, on the same day that he died, when he read his will, on the same day, he came himself to, as a representative, and he came to make the grave of the sheikh inside that graveyard. And there was no way, it's not allowed to bury any person there. It's absolutely prohibited because they're going to demolish it. So when the sheikh was buried there, he was the last person to be buried. A fence was built on top of that graveyard. And no one is allowed now to bring sheep and dogs and all of that to be respected. So maybe the people who are there, they're happy that the sheikh transferred himself into there to protect their body to be dug out. Some of the brothers whom they have parents and relatives who died there, in the talks regarding the sheikh after his death, I remember one of the brothers, he stood up and he said, I just want to share with you something. I have seen a vision in which my father is happy because the Sheikh Al-Albani had arrived in the cemetery. And this is a student of knowledge. He said, I have seen a vision where my father is telling me, Alhamdulillah, Sheikh Al-Albani had arrived to us. So even the grave people who was being buried, they are happy with a scholar. Why? Because the scholar, when he came, he's not going to give them fatwa in the grave, but that grave is now, cemetery is being protected. The cemetery now is being not really like being before exposed to all of this humiliation. So he was buried there. Sheikh was buried there. But actually he was not the last person. There was another person who was being buried after him, and that is the one who had given him the wash and the one who buried himself. His neighbor, Izzat Khadr, Sheikh Izzat Khadr, good friend of mine, Abu Abdullah, Abdullah Izzat Khadr, rahmatullahi alayh. I remember him, he had some cancer, he passed through some cancer, and he had 4 wives, and he had his 40th kid. I remember, even he rang me up and said, I got my 40th little girl. 40th little girl, he said. And he was so happy. That's about a year before he died. And then he died, rahmatullahi alayh. I saw him in the hospital just about a week before I traveled back to England. And he died just about 2 or 3 days after I traveled. But when I went in the last days, he said to me, when he was in his bed, he could talk. He said, Alhamdulillah, he said, Khalas, wakkaltuhu ila Allah. He just felt it. He said, I've given my faith into the hands of Allah. That's it. So he knew. Even the night before he was buried, this man, he talked to Sheikh Mashhur. He said, I want you to pray on my janazah tomorrow. Subhanallah. He said, I want to pray on my janazah. And that's what the Sheikh, when he led the janazah, he was crying, rahmatullah alayh. And he said, Ushhidullah, I testify that this man, he loves Allah and His Messenger. Rahmatullah alayh. Now I remember the Sheikh Izzat, when he buried the Sheikh Al-Albani in the grave, because that grave was, if a man is a rocky place. There was a big rock. They had to bring the municipality a compressor, 2 compressors, wallahi, working, and it was there, just to break the rock, and made the lahad, the lahad which is not the shaq, like this and there, like you go in the Baqi' al-Gharqad, like this and like that. And as the Khabar, he said to me, when I put the Sheikh straight away inside, I didn't do anything. His face turned to the Qibla by itself. He told me, his face turned to the Qibla by itself. I remember his words. MashaAllah, Sheikh is wajhu ala al-Qibla. MashaAllah. Izzat Khadr, he tells me as well things which is not in the books. Rahmatullahi ala Sheikh. Him and his Sheikh. Verily, he said, once we were going to the Umrah. And the Sheikh usually go to Umrah every year, even twice a year. So he went with the Sheikh, and the Sheikh, yes, he likes to speed. But there's conditions when he speeds. Condition number 1, your car is good. So your donkey is really double carburetor and everything. There's not really an old banger. Condition number 2, the road is good. Condition number 3, that is, there is no, inhabitants. A road which is like a motorway. So why not? Why not to go and speed? So if he's speed, the Sheikh is sure speed. But the speed which is not a crazy speed, which you pull the handbrake and all of that nonsense. No, the speed which is a controlled speed. And on top of that, he said, the skillful driver. You have to be a skillful driver. With ease conditions, you could drive fast. So the Sheikh, he was driving, and behind him, the one who takes the recording, Abu Layla, in a different car. And he was with the Sheikh in front, in the passenger seat, and the Sheikh is the driver. And both his wife, the first one, of the Sheikh, we've got 4 wives, and the Sheikh's wife are at the back. So the Sheikh is driving, and there was a woman on the road. Clear woman. And the Sheikh can't see it. So he said, Izzat Khalaf to me, he said, I said to the Shaykh, I don't know how they said it, leave the steering wheel, shut it like this. And I took it from him and I did like this, and I threw it back. Just that bit and that bit saved that woman. And then they stopped after that. And they said, to the Shaykh, I didn't see it. He said, I consider this is a karama for my Shaykh. He says, Izzat Khalaf, this is a karama. Allah gave him the karama. He almost knocked that girl, he didn't see her. Yes, the Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayh, he had killed a boy. And the Shaykh did not pay his blood money. He did not consider it to be a killing by mistake. Because his Shaykh was driving in sensible speed. He was on a motorway. And that motorway in an uninhabited area. This boy is running, and he came between trees, and he jumped onto the motorway. In front of the Shaykh. So the boy was killed. So the Shaykh, he says, this is equivalent to a person. He was driving his car, somebody driving from somewhere, and he's driving crazy, and somehow he flew with his car to your car, and he banged into your car, and he died. Are you responsible for that death? Are you responsible for that death? You're not. Or somebody, while you're driving, came from the sky, dropped on you. Are you responsible for that death? No. There is no penalty to be paid. There is no expiation which is faster than the 2 months. The Shaykh rahmatullah alayh also, he had an accident where he had rolled on the motorway. That's when he was going to Saudi Arabia, and the car was upside down. Some of the people came to help him. So the people, they normally, they say this word, Ya Sittir, Ya Sittir, Ya Sattar, Ya Sattar. This is the word. That means Ya Sattar, oh Lord, they call him Sattar. So the Shaykh is under the car, said, don't say Ya Sattar, say Ya Sittir. He's even teaching the people while he is in the accident. Don't say Ya Sattar, Ya Sittir. Sattar is not in the name of Allah. So he's upside down. Still the Shaykh is teaching, rahmatullah alayh. The Shaykh was a student of knowledge and also taking the Sunnah as a something that is like he adopted it. It's not like just books and things. No. The Shaykh, rahmatullah, in Syria, when he saw there is a split between the brothers in some towns, and his old car, they call it Sayar al-Ajuz, an old car, is not going to be fast. He bought a ticket to go and fly in order to arbitrate between these two scholars, to unite them, not to split upon the Salafiyya, Shaykh Muhammad Nasib al-Rifai and others, for a big issue. So he went to travel in the plane. So the Shaykh takes the Sunnah upon. The Shaykh rahmatullahi was a murabbi. He's not just a person who is a teacher. He's a murabbi. He's nurturing you. He is raising you up, rahmatullahi. Shaykh never been known to be except fasting Monday and Thursday, except he is a traveler or ill. Monday and Thursday every time. Monday and Thursday, Monday and Thursday. His life. And the Shaykh was asked, why is it that you like to fast Monday and Thursday from the ibadah you concentrate upon this? He said, because the ibadah gives you great reward and saves you a lot of time. How, Shaykh? You have only one meal. When you have 3 meals, that's a lot of time being wasted. Look at that. So this type of ibadah gives you a lot of reward and more time. And the Shaykh, by the way, is concerned about that little time that you spend upon the food. Because if you eat 3 meals a day, how many meals during the month? That's about 90 meals. If each meal takes about 25 minutes to 20 minutes, that's a lot of time. A lot of time. And that is why some of the scholars have been known to be keen about their time, like Ibn al-Jawzi. Ibn al-Jawzi, rahmatullah alayhi, used to write books everywhere. Even when he was in the toilet, he liked somebody to recite on him while he was in the toilet. He was to listen on his Batul Khala. He can't read, but he could what? Listen. And not only that, he asked for his food to be dissolved in his milk. He hasn't got much time to digest and chew it. He wants to swallow it. That's it. This is the Imam Ibn al-Jawzi, rahmatullah alayhi, whom they said 60,000 of the people of the book embraced Islam on his hand. Wa'id al-dunya, they call him. This man, because he has no waste of time, at that time used to be pencils of sharpness. There used to be people from his relatives are time wasters. They come and waste his time. Every time they come, they start gossiping, how are you and how is your life? And I want to read and write. So he cannot get away with it because this is rahim. This is the kinship. He has to join it. So he thought of an idea. You know, when he writes, he has to what? Sharpen pencils. So he thought every time these relatives or chit-chatting relatives, he pass upon them a number of pencils. Come on, sharpen. Why are you talking? So he's using the time, you know. So alhamdulillah, he's not really wasting his time. And that's how the scholars they are. Shaykh Al-Albani was known for this time. He's really keen. He will not waste a single time. He's got organized timetable. Allah put barakah in his time. He's got time to give trip to his family. Trip on Tuesday. Take them for a trip. He's got time to have some as well, students' classes. He's got some time as well to do his ibadah. He's got some time to read his Quran. Allah has given him the barakah. But he's got a timetable. It's very precise. Rahmatullahi alayhi. And when you come to his house, he will honor you. This is as well to add to the things which you're not going to find in the book, which is that the Sheikh, I have paid his visit in his house, a visit more than 4 times. I remember some of those times when I went to his library, he's got like a pulley, and it's got a rope, and each rope has got like a clip, and that clip has got a piece of paper. So the Sheikh, if he wants something, he will pull that pulley, and the paper will come to him, and he will take it. The Sheikh is really a technician. Subhanallah. He is a brilliant man, technician. So when I wanted to take a photocopy of something, so the Sheikh, the photocopier is working. He said, do you know how to take a photocopy? I said, Sheikh, I'm a librarian. I have a bookshop. Okay, show me. So I went there and I put something. Stay. So the Sheikh goes up and he goes and he takes the paper from me and he says, this is the way to do it. And he wants to make me that this is the way. Even you are a bookshop person, even you are an expert, but you're not doing it the right way. Or according to what he says. Rahmatullahi alayhi. When the Sheikh was in his house, from the things that I have, Rahmatullahi alayhi, is that I wanted to pay him a visit and as well record my visit. So what I did, I put my recorder, I had it in my pocket. And I went to the Sheikh because of a bribe. I had to bribe to get this visit. It's a private visit. What was it? It was when the Sheikh Rahmatullah Ali had won the prize of King Faisal. King Faisal got the prize for Ahlul Sunnah. He had been given to the Sheikh. The Sheikh did not go to take it. He sent on his behalf Sheikh Muhammad Shakra. Now that being televised on Saudi Arabian TV. There was no satellite channels at that time. Saudi Arabian TV, which is the main channel. And I had in my father's house TV, and the antenna can pick up Saudi Arabia. So I put my video recorder and I recorded that session when the Sheikh Shakra had read the words of thanking on behalf of the Sheikh Al-Albani. Sheikh Al-Albani wrote the words and the Sheikh Shakra is reading those words. So I phoned the wife of Sheikh Al-Albani. I said, can I get a visit to the Sheikh? She said, the Sheikh is very busy. I said, I've got the videotape which records the word of Sheikh Shakra when he received the prize on behalf of the Sheikh Al-Albani. She said, well, we've got it before. I said, oh my God. Allah al-Musta'an. I said, oh Lord, cut that tape and make it not to work. The tape of that person who had given it. Wallah, oh Lord, cut that tape. I don't want that tape to work. While I was, after just an hour or so, she rings me back. The wife of the Sheikh. You got the video still? Yes, I've got it. She said, ours doesn't work. Bring it. I said, on one condition. She said, even want a condition as well? I said, I want to bring 3 people with me. She said, maybe it's too much. I said, well, what I've got is too much as well. It's a valuable thing. So she laughed. She said, okay, come with the 3 people. I came with the 3 brothers, and we came all the way, and I put the recorder, and I wanted to record now what the Sheikh doesn't know. I said, because I don't know, I was really scared. Then I put the recorder, I went to the toilet, I put it on, and I came to the Sheikh, and I sat. Then after the Sheikh, I asked him the question which I want to ask regarding people like Saqaf and others. And then I said to the Sheikh, do you mind if this is to be recorded? He said, no, it's been recorded already, Sheikh. Where? He said, I said, what? Okay, Sheikh, so next time you record with the permission of me. But I don't mind if you want to record. So I asked him regarding a number of things, regarding some people, regarding some of the shuyukh as well in Saudi Arabia. And then after that, we went out. This is one of the incidents that took place between me and the Sheikh Rahmatullah alayhi. One of those incidents as well, I remember, that is Rahmatullahi alayhi. I have read in his book, that is the person, in order to make it permissible to kiss the hand of someone, it has to be the kissing of the hand of your father, like a daughter kissing the hand of her father, son kissing the hand of his father, or a person kissing the hand of a sheikh, of his teacher, as long as that teacher does not do like the Sufis who are extending kiss. The Sufis kiss, they like this. Even they want you to, kiss. If he does like this, don't kiss his hand. So those ulama al-Rabbaneen, you may kiss their hands as well. I read that in the book of the Shaykh Al-Albani. So I have met him in front of the masjid which we used to go to listen to the Khutbah al-Jumu'ah, the masjid which I told you about. And I saw him as soon as he came in, and the Shaykh, and I saw him straight away. I went to the Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi, and I shook his hand. Because I was really rushing, half of my hand got into half of his palm. Half. So when he held it, he said, this is nisfu musafaha, half a shake. So he put it like this, and said, this is the full shake. Shaykh, well, I was really rushing, that's why, sorry Shaykh. And then I took his hand, and I'm trying now to kiss it. I don't know how powerful he is. He's old, but he's so powerful. He pulled it from me, and I followed it. And he pulled it from me. I followed it, and then I couldn't kiss it. The kiss was in the air. I said, why Shaykh do you do this? Why do you do this? Shaykh, didn't you say in your books that you could kiss the hands of the scholar? He said, yeah, the scholar. He said, the scholar. Allahu Akbar. When I heard this, I was in tears. If you are not the scholar, who's the scholar? That's how humble was the Shaykh Rahmatullah. He was so humble. So humble. One day he was invited to Aqiqah. He accepted it. The turn-up was going to be, 20 people, 30 people. Just 2 hours before the Aqiqah. 2 hours. News heard that 5,000 came. He didn't want to go. Even Sheikh Saleh, he likes him so much, Saleh Abu Islam, Sheikh Saleh Taha, Abu Islam, he begged the Sheikh, he refused. And he said the following word, حُبُّ الظُّهُورِ يَقْسِمُ الظُّهُورِ. The love of being to be fine, it will break your back. Zuhur, to show yourself. Zuhur as well, the backs. حُبُّ الظُّهُورِ يَقْسِمُ, breaks your backs. He was invited to Bangladesh. And then when they told him, he asked, how many people are going to be there? They said, 2 million, Sheikh. He said, I'm not going to go. Look at that. These are 2 millions? Who's going to turn 2 millions down, brothers? These days, 2 millions? 2 millions clicks, mashallah, they're going to get advertisement onto your video clip. 2 millions are going to see the Sheikh. Sheikh Rahmatullah alayhi. So when the Sheikh, he was in his life, one person came to the Sheikh Ibn Baz, and listen to this. He said to him, Sheikh, we've heard that somebody said that you have said that you don't know anyone underneath the heavens who is more knowledgeable in the hadith than the Shaykh Al-Albani. He said, I don't recall I have said it, but if I haven't said it, I'm saying it. Again, you must have heard it from Shaykh Ibn Baz. Somebody came to the Shaykh Ibn Baz and he told the Shaykh Al-Halabi in his ear. He said, I went to Shaykh Ibn Baz and asked. We've heard Shaykh Ibn Baz that you have said of Shaykh Al-Albani that no one, you don't know anyone who's more knowledgeable in hadith underneath the heavens than the Shaykh Al-Albani. Did you say that? He said, I don't recall saying it, but I haven't said it. I'm saying it now. Rahmatullahi alayhi. As for Shaykh Muqbil Rahmatullahi alayhi, when he was asked regarding some issues, he says, when he's asked, why don't you, write about the Masail Fiqhiyya which you differ with the Shaykh? He said, I am scared of the Shaykh. Let the person who's present tell the person who's not here. I'm scared of the Shaykh. Like this, he said, Arhabu Shaykh. When the Shaykh died and he was asked about the beard. So the Shaykh, he said, well, the Shaykh Al-Albani, he used to say that above the handful is a bid'ah. That's the Shaykh Al-Albani's opinion. And the other opinion is that you could let go. Wallahi, if the Shaykh Al-Albani was alive, I would not be daring saying this. Rahmatullah ala Shaykh Muqbil, he said, I will not dare to say that. I would be scared. And that's been documented. I'm really reading what has been documented by our mashayikh regarding the Shaykh Al-Albani, rahmatullah. And the time now, I don't want to go further than I want to give you questions then as well. There is some things that happen as well with the Shaykh in some of the talks that happened in my uncle's house in our city. I have documented that in a little booklet. And inshallah, I want to show it to the Shaykh, which is upon halaqat, what happened in our city, how the city of ours turned from a city that doesn't know about Salafiyah to a Salafi city. Because two visits of the Shaykh Al-Albani, rahmatullahi alayhi. If you have any question, brothers, regarding what we have heard, something that we could really share together, or a question regarding the Shaykh, if I have an answer, I'll answer. Otherwise, I will say Allahu Ta'ala. So let's start with the brothers who have questions from the floor. If you have to write the question as well, write it. Anybody want to ask about something that you have heard about the Shaykh, or something that you need to know from the Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayhi? Fadal. The recording? The recording, I have it, but I didn't want to give it to anybody. I kept it to myself for a number of reasons. Because the people who talked about, these people now becoming good. Okay, so some of the people became good, so I don't want to cause trouble. Yeah. Trouble. What other forms of worship the ibadah of the Shaykh? Well, we have asked the students who are close to the Shaykh, rahmatullah alayhi. One of the things that the Shaykh used to, from his ibadah, is the sadaqah. Shaykh used to give a lot of sadaqah that his left doesn't know how much his right is to spend. Some of those people were in, for example, financial situations where they used to, for example, borrow with riba from the banks, and they have made tawbah to Allah. And then the bank imposed upon them some sort of, punishment or, financial sort of payments. When they come to the Shaykh, I remember that to one of the brothers, he talked about a woman whom the Shaykh, the Shaykh Izzat Khadar, he told me that the woman, she wanted 7,000. That's not a lot, 7,000 pounds, by the way, English money. Even the pound, now the Jordanian dinar is more than the pound. So 7,000 pounds. At that time, it's a lot of money. So she wanted 7,000 because the bank is taking her house and she wants her house and everything. And she said, we'll pay it within 4 or 5 years. So the Shaykh, he said, he sent me, is it? Khadab? And to go and investigate. So I investigated and it was a true case. So I went to the Shaykh. The Shaykh called upon her, she came. And he said, this is 7,000 pounds. And she started paying back on time, the woman. Until she had paid back, the Shaykh, he said, and this is from the Al-Albani, 1,000 pounds. Now, the Shaykh who had talked about it, Izzat Khadar, is after his death. Because the Shaykh told him, don't tell anybody. Ikhlas. He gave, anybody gives 1,000, I gave 1,000 by the way, alhamdulillah. He gave the 1,000. This is something which is, he said, don't tell anybody. But he told it after the Shaykh had died. So 1,000, this is some of the money which is Sheikhs and Shaykh ibn Baz, you read in the Bible, subhanallah, they're sadaqah. So this is from the ibadah of the Shaykh, rahmatullah. From the ibadah of the Shaykh as well, rahmatullah alayhi, is that he believes in the hadith that the best of your actions in the sight of Allah is whatever you are consistent, but even if it's little. Even if it's little. So the Shaykh, he is keen to make his witr. And the witr of the Shaykh, rahmatullah alayhi, in his late time, it will be at the early time, not at the end of the time. But the Shaykh will do the witr before he sleeps. The Shaykh is so precise in his timing that from his ibadah, that he believes that the time is ibadah. So if, for example, a student is supposed to arrive after Fajr, and he did not arrive, he'll give you 1 chance, 2 chances, and then after that, he will tell you, that's it, you've finished. One of the students which are well known, friend of mine as well, he came, and he was, he used to go to the Shaykh, and he used to be in the library, and everything, but because he was late, because if you are working with the Shaykh, you have to make sure that you watch exactly like the watch of the Shaykh. You watch is exactly like the watch of the Shaykh. So he's precise, minutes. So because of that, he had said to him, don't come back again. That's it. And he swapped him with another person. But this person was with him for a long, long time, but because he had made number of things, even one of the Sheikhs, Shaykh Al-Halabi, he wanted to intercede. He said, لَقَدْ طَفَّ الْكَيْلِ خلاص, it's beyond, I can't do it. Too much now. I can't really tell him back. Even the intercession of Shaykh Al-Halabi, rahmatullahi alayhi. The Shaykh as well, as described by Shaykh Ibn Ishaq Al-Huwayni, rahmatullahi, hafidhahullah, and by our shuyukh, his face was glowing. Glowing. As soon as you see it, glowing. I remember one of the sheikhs, which is Al-Muqaddam, Ismail, he's Egyptian. I met him in Leicester. Yes, in Leicester, in one of these conferences. And the sheikh, he said to me like this. He said, I went in the presence of Shaykh ibn Baz, and I went in the presence of Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen. He says that. And I went, and this has been recorded. So if you could see it, and he could read it as well, challenge it. And I went in the presence of Shaykh Al-Albani. He said, I never felt the rahbah, the fear, more than I felt it with the Shaykh Al-Albani. Shaykh Al-Albani makes you fear. So one of the students of Shaykh Muqbil, he said that our Shaykh Muqbil and another person, when he wants to go to debate about a hadith, they are sure that the Shaykh made a mistake in it. So they go inside and they come out. Now they are sure they were wrong. He's so powerful, very undefeatable. Can't defeat him regarding the debates. So that's why Ahlul Bid'ah is scared of him. Some of the scholars of Salafi said, Alhamdulillah, you Sheikh Salafi. If you were not Salafi, you could have been making us trouble. Imagine that you were not Salafi, you're going to make us trouble to go and debate with you. Because he was so, you call it dhakira muttaqida. His memory is very, very powerful. When he talks to you, it's like recording. And then he brings you back to the points which you already talked about 5 minutes, you forgot it. Did you say this? Did you say that? So he pinpoints you. See, he draws you a map. You don't know where you're going. You're going to the ditch. You're going to the ditch. You're going to fall. But you don't know. You think, oh yeah, I'll go. And then, halas, dead, knockout. And that's the Shaykh rahmatullah. Other ibadat, Allahu a'lam, for those ibadat that I have mentioned. Now. Right. This is from the things which I have learned from, because he was a carpenter. Remember. Now his desk, is actually, because his room, I remember his room, and he's got a desk, and when he opens the door, it blocks his entrance to the table from this side. He has to go to the desk is bigger than this. He has to go 1, 2, 3 steps, okay, to come to the desk. And when he goes out, 1, 2, 3, 4, comes out. But he can't come from this way because the door opens. So he called the carpenter. He said to him, I don't want the door open this way. I want to take the hinges, all of it, and put them in this side. The carpenter, why you want to do that? I could just make the door, what's the difference between open this way or that way? It's not opening inside or outside. No. The hinges be transferred where? In this side. So he said to him, that I'll tell you why. Now, if I do it like this, 1, 2 steps, I'm out. Here is 5 steps. So I'm saving 3 steps. 3 steps, I've got 5 prayers. 5 prayers is 15 steps a day. 15 steps a day, how many in a month? How many in a year? How much time I'm saving? That's how the Shaykh was. And he made the carpenter do his door. Rahmatullah. The time for him is so valuable. Shaykh Abu Ishaq al-Huwaini, when he came to him to ask for just to beg, can I have some time? No, don't have time. Until he showed him his dedication, then the Shaykh, he said, Allah had given you the time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all the Shaykh, rahmatullah, he attributes everything to Allah. Nothing to do with his time working in the wash, nothing. It's to do with Allah. Everything Allah Azza wa Jal. Says, Allah had blessed me with this. Allah had blessed me with that. He refers it to Allah Azza wa Jal. So Shaykh Abu Ishaq al-Huwaini, rahmatullah alayhi, when he came the first time, he said that how the Shaykh was hospitable. He brought his wife, she brought the tray. So the Shaykh is old now, and he's about 40-something years older than Abu Ishaq al-Huwaini. So the Shaykh is old. So he wants to go and, so he wanted to help. The Shaykh is old, I want to help. So the Shaykh said, sit. So, and the Shaykh wanted to go. He goes again, goes up. Abu Ishaq, I can't let him. The Shaykh, sit. Then after that he said, Al-Adab huwa al-iltizam. The manners is to abide by the instructions. This is the best of ultimate. So if you want to be in your ultimate adab, is to what? Abide the instructions. If you don't abide the instruction, you're not really mu'addab. I said, you sit, that's it, sit. So when the Shaykh said to me, sit, don't touch the photocopy, I did not touch the photocopy. Because I know the Shaykh will tell me, oh, khalas, I don't know anything. Rahmatullahi ala Shaykh. Now, and by the way, after this I have to tell you as well, the Shaykh is a human being. So he makes mistakes, and he taught us, Rahmatullahi alayhi. Shaykh Salih al-Suhaimi, Salih al-Suhaimi, you know him. Shaykh Salih al-Suhaimi, one day he was teaching in the Masjid al-Nabawi. One person, one of those people who have some sort of thing regarding the Shaykh. And then the Shaykh Salih al-Suhaimi started defending the Shaykh. He said, I remember when I paid him a visit, and he was in his last illness, and his blood cells, they've been swapped. The blood cells, have to swap them. Every hour or 2 hours, they have to swap them. So I came to him, and the people around, they said, this is the Shaykh Salih al-Suhaimi. He said, you want me to introduce this man to me? I know him. He's the one who argues regarding i'adat al-salah, that's repeating the prayer on Siyam Yawm al-Sabt, and to okay to pray, to fast the Saturday. The one who argues. So Shaykh Salih al-Suhaimi said, Shaykh, but I still holding the opinion that you could do second Jama'ah, and also that Saturday, that is okay to fast. He said, that's what I want you to be. He said, that's what I want you to be. And that's when the Shaykh Al-Hussein was crying in the Masjid of the Prophet. Because the Shaykh, he told his students, don't be Ibn Taymiyyeen. Don't be Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyyin. Don't be Albaniyin. No followers. Well, we are teaching the people not to be blind followers. Shaykh Al-Albani, like others, they make mistakes. All the scholars, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad Muhammad, all of them said, take from what they. Yes, we use them as tools, but they're not the target. We use them as means to reach the haqq. They are upon our heads. Imam Abu Hanifa, he said to his student, Yaqub Abu Yusuf Abu Yaqub, he said to him, what are you doing? He said, I'm writing what you're saying. He said, don't do that. People say something today, we change our mind the following day. Take from Allah and His Messenger. Take from Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Fadl. Sorry? How much the sleep used to get the Shaykh? The sleep that the Shaykh he would get normally at least 6 hours. Rahmatullah. But I'll tell you something. When you work a lot in something, you tend to have it in your dreams as well. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the scholar, they said, the scientists, that if you pick up tomatoes all day long, you're going to pick up tomatoes in your dreams as well. Do you understand that? If you pick up tomatoes, you're going to pick up tomatoes as well. So the Imam, when he's leading as well, his dreams about Imaming as well. Imam, because he's doing Imam all the time. So the Shaykh was seen by his son, Abdul Latif, number of times. He was talking to his son, go and bring me the book, Sunan Ibn Majah, while he's sleeping. Not this book, the other one. Number of times. Bring that book, not this one, bring the other one. Bring this one. Shaykh, even in his dreams. I remember our Shaykh Mashhur, Habibullah. He says, I looked into a matter which is regarding Al-Jam'u Bayn As-Salatain. And there's something there, a point. I want to look. Did any scholar say about this point? I can't remember the point. And he said, Shaykh, I was really got so tired to look for it. I almost given up. The Shaykh, he says, in my dream, I just came to the library of mine and I picked up the book. And I don't remember, he called the book. And I opened the book on such and such page. And I looked at the matter in my dreams. So when I got up the dreams, I went to the book. And there it is in the same page where he saw it in the dream. And I'm taking this from the Shaykh, Mashhur from me, from my ear to his mouth. He said, I saw it in my dream, and I took the book, and there it is. This is karamah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah gives you the karamah. Allah gives you the karamah. Allah shows you things. Like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's companion, Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, on the pulpit. And his army, 2 months distance. 2 months distance. 2 months? While he was delivering his khutbah. Ya Sariyah al-Jabal. Sariyah is the commander of the people, or the squadron of army he had sent. And too far. He said, Sariyah, the commander, al-Jabal, take the mountain, hide yourself, or take sort of protection into the mountain. And then he finished the khutbah, and then he went down. Ali ibn Abi Talib said, Ya Amir al-Mu'minin, what was that saying about Sariyah? What was that got to do with the khutbah of yours? Basically. Did I say it? He can't recall it. After 2 months, the army had arrived. Sariyah, he comes to Umar, and it's Hadith Sahih. He said to Umar, Jazakallahu khayran, we heard your voice in the mountains. And because of that, we hided ourselves from the enemy. This is karamah. Allah gives it. I will believe in the karamah. Karamah al-awliya. This is from our aqidah. But not the khurafat al-juhal wal-juhalaha. The khurafat, the khurafat, these are fairy tales of other people. Fairy tales of, this person who's a Sufi, and he's got his murid behind him, okay? And they are going to go and walk on the water. So he says to him, I will say, Ya Allah. But you're going to say what? Ya Shaykhi. My Shaykh. My Shaykh. So, as soon as they went to the water, that follower, he drowned. Why did you drown? What did you say? He said, I said, Ya Allah, like you. He said, no, this is not fit for you. It's fit for me. You have to say, Ya Shaykhi. And Allah will say, these are khurafat, lies of those people. This ilm al-juhl wal-juhala. One of the stories as well, which I have learned from those people, that to show that the glory of ignorance. Listen, the glory of what? Ignorance. Ignorance has no glory, but the glory of ignorance. One man is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in an island. He's separated from the whole world. He doesn't know how to pray. So every time you want to pray, He's got a cloak that he puts on. He puts it in front of him. He's got a staff. Call it asa. And he's got a goat. So he puts it. He says, "Oh Lord, abati, asati, anzati, taqabbal salati." Oh Lord, my salah, my anza, my goat, my staff, my cloak, oh Lord, is in Arabic the rhyme, by the way. Rabbi, abati, salati, anzati, taqabbal salati. Accept my salah. Until one day, a person who is a scholar, a person who is a teacher, comes into a ship and he docks into that island. So he sees that person who is doing this type of prayer. He says to him, "No, he's not the prayer correct. This prayer is supposed to be like this." And he taught him Takbiratul Ihram, he did the Fatiha and everything. But he did not stay with him for a long time. So maybe it was not enough for him to memorize everything. So now it was time for the scholar to leave the island. So he left the island. And he was in the ship with the boat. The boat is about in the middle of the ocean. Too far. So this person now, the time prayer comes. And he wants to pray the prayer which has been taught to him by that scholar. So he puts his cloak and he forgets. Oh, my cloak and my staff and my goat. Oh Lord, accept my prayer. He come back to the same prayer. So he started now shouting to the scholar. The scholar can't hear him. So he went on top of the water. And he's walking in the water, walking until he reached the scholar. "Salamu alaikum, scholar. I forgot the prayer that you taught me." The scholar looks at him. "I tell you what, my prayer does not get, this sort of karama of walking on the water. Go back to your own prayer." This is mentioned in the glory of ignorance and ignorance. Do you understand that? Go back to your own prayer, because your prayer, my prayer does not give you the option of walking in the water. Allahul Musta'an. That's a lie against as well the knowledge. The knowledge is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مَا يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Allah wants good to you, will give you the understanding of the religion.